Hello everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, hanging out and doing some hobby. And you know what? I'm painting up some models for a buddy and myself. So tell me if you like this, actually. I just started putting a little text at the bottom of the screen, just like what's on the table. So as you can see, I have a Varengard. Let's see. We got that guy. Tell me if you can see and hear me okay. For some reason, it looks like YouTube's not getting a whole lot of data through. Let's see. Why is it doing that? There I am. Let's see. Looks like I'm freezing. Okay. Why are you dropping frames? Okay. Well, if you guys say I'm good, I'm gonna keep going. For some reason, it's acting kind of odd. Good morning. Okay. Oh, okay. It's back to working normal. Okay. Sorry, before I get started, I just wanted to triple check. For some reason, it just kind of had a little freak out and was like, there's no data coming in. There we go. But now it all looks good. Not sure what happened there. So, yeah, on the table, I got a Varengard, and here's my Imperial Fist I'm practicing with. I grabbed a yellow primer from Army Painter just to try, and if this doesn't work, then we're going Crimson Fists, because I couldn't get a consistency that I like. But the thing about Army Painter that they offer is they have like 100% like paint match guarantee, so like this yellow, in theory, will perfectly match the yellow primer, and it seems to do a very good job. So I'm pretty happy about that. And of course, I am painting a Varengard for my buddy Craig, Take Over Mars, and we're just gonna keep chipping away at that. There's a lot of like trim around the armor, so we got up the stream and Hangout, right? So, how is everyone doing today? Is that end in yellow? Yes it is. I'll be honest, I like the darker one more, Nazdrag yellow. It's a little bit more intense. Originally, when I was going to do my Imperial Fists, I wanted them to be more of a muted yellow than like a true, bright or whatever. But I was just having the hardest time getting anything to paint consistently like that. And so, actually, I'm gonna take a little bit of this and thin it out right quick. There we go. Sorry about that. I had my paintbrush in my mouth. Spezia coming in hot. Thank you so much, buddy. Oh, that's so kind of you. I've been enjoying doing more streams, and people seem to like it as well. So I didn't realize that was in such high demand. Would have been doing it a long time ago. Well, I guess I couldn't. I was working and then I moved. But that's why this was always part of the plan. About going full time. So, yeah, just painting this guy up. Unfortunately, there's not much to talk about news-wise, as the last thing to really happen was the holiday bundles dropping. We already chatted about those. Although I will say I've made a huge mistake in that I started rereading City of Secrets while a Tzeentch bundle is going to be on sale pretty soon. That was a terrible idea. Now I really want one, because I'm reading about all the acolytes and that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, these guys are so cool. Zangors, Zangors are so cool. That's my problem, is I fall in love very easily with every single faction. Sometimes multiple times. But I haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet. I want to work through some of the models that I already have before I invest. It's one of those things, like holiday bundles make fantastic ways to jump into a new army. So My understanding is they're not going to be for sale until like the 5th, I think. And so we will not worry about it too much until closer to that date. Dark Prince, hey, hey. Iowa, what part? I'm from the Quad Cities originally. Been in Colorado for 20 years. I am right in between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. Right in that particular nook and or cranny. They've been teasing up stuff, countdown numbers on Instagram. Yeah, I've seen that for the big preview this Saturday, and already scheduled it out with my wonderful and long-suffering wife. I will be there to do a reveal show, probably immediately afterwards. I don't want to do it during the show because I'd much rather, I'm still a hobbyist. I get to, sit there, watch, and be amazed like everybody else. Wow me, GW. You gotta wow me. Dazzle me. That's what I usually say. Dazzle me. And so, yeah, we'll be doing that. Right now I'm just blocking out color, and we'll worry about details later. I'm just laying down some base of Balthazar gold, which is that nice dark. Is it gold? Balthazar? Yeah, Balthazar gold. It's that almost like dark, rich, molten gold. I love it. Everybody talks about Retributor armor. This is the only gold for me. Although Retributor armor, it's just a really nice smooth paint. But in terms of like coverage and just kind of the golds that I tend to paint, because I do a lot of chaos stuff. This is the winner. Yeah, it looks like they're doing. I know the one they teased. I think it was today. Was definitely a Vanzar for Necromunda, which I'm a little bummed. I won't lie to you. I was really hoping that I could move here and like maybe someone would have some interest in Necromunda, and nobody does. So now I'm like, well, what do I do with all this stuff now? Kind of a thing. Just kind of bummed a little bit. No one seems to have an interest in it locally. And I enjoy painting the models, and I'd keep a gang, but I don't know if I like, the stuff that I own takes up so much room. I have like the entire Dark Uprising terrain and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, do I want all this? That hobby space and dollars could go towards something that I do want. I'm all over the place. Doug, do you think AOS will explore the etheric void more now that it was hinted at in Broken Realms? I'd like them to. I want them to at least talk about it more. That space between realms were just... honestly... Man, if they put out like one good Seraphon Black Library novel... Because that's like their realm. Like they just like chill out in between realms sometimes. Man, give me that. There are more people in Necromunda than 40k right now. Oh, I'm jealous. Because honestly, I do prefer Necromunda. Just it's more rules heavy, but because it's only like, 10 to 13 dudes, it doesn't feel too cumbersome. But, honestly, there's a lot of folks around here that are very interested in Warcry, so I should be very, very happy because that's kind of my jam. We can meet up. We don't have to really worry about, complicated rules and that kind of stuff. We just show up, hang out, laugh a lot, and then leave. Games are knocked out real quick, easy peasy. But yeah, it does seem like AOS is not super popular around here. Like there are people who have AOS armies, but in terms of like most game nights and stores and that kind of stuff, it's just not played a lot. But it's funny that like, I don't know, every region's just different, like around here, it really just seems to be 40k, and the Sigmar stuff is almost unanimously revolving around like the smaller games, so like Warcry and Underworlds, that kind of stuff. Which I mean, I'm down for. That's the kind of games that I like, honestly. Anymore, man, the older I get, the more I like skirmish games. I don't know if it's just my taste changing or what. I just kind of like the shorter ones where we can get together and I can report on like multiple games that I've played, as opposed to like, you know, as much as I love playing AOS, it takes so long. Although part of that view is colored by the fact that like if I wanted to get a game back in Seattle, I would have to drive, 35 minutes or whatever down to Jack or Shoes to be able to play with those guys on rerolling ones. You should only buy the box if it actually saves you money. Oh, of course. That's honestly, when it comes to any of the when it comes to any of the box sets or whatever. Oh man, it's doing the frame drop thing again. What's going on? Weird. Yeah, internet's strong. Okay. I'll keep an eye on it. Someone say something if the stream totally cuts out. I can stop and restart it. Doug, please, your influence and pull with GW, and please get them to do Marauder line of model. I have zero influence. You have no idea. I have negative influence. I assure you, no one there is listening to me when it comes to, hey guys, you should do blank, because if they did, we already have like a Crusade style of Path to Glory and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. I want a bunch of Imperial Guard stuff for $40, but I don't like the paint job. Think it's worth spending the time repainting, or just enjoy the boon and having fun shooting stuff with 8 Lehman Russ tanks. You know, man, that I honestly, when you talk about tanks specifically, like guardsmen are pretty easy to clean up because they're like older, thicker models. So like, if you need to scrub them, like with a toothbrush after you get some paint remover on them, that's not a problem at all. When it comes to tanks, though, here's the thing: if they were built well, just take a gander at how well they were actually physically constructed, because I had one where I tried to repaint a tank, and because they got a little too aggressive with the hobby knife, there were like little slits, and so basically when I submerged it in stuff to make the paint go away, it bowl and became a real and so it just kind of made the whole process a bit of a headache. So I would say, if they built the tanks well, it should go pretty quickly. If they didn't, I guess see how much work you're willing to put into it. That's the thing. If you just want it for $40, right? Like any amount of work, you're still saving, time over money, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's a tricky one. Specifically because like the big flat edges and stuff, like like I said, guardsmen I think are a no-brainer. They're very easy to do, but with the tanks, they can start to be a pain in the butt real quick. Let's see. I'm sorry if I'm missing some. I do apologize. Keep asking your questions. I'm just looking at the chat, in between brushstrokes and that kind of stuff. So I promise I'm not ignoring anybody. Let's see. Here in the Dallas Fort area, we want to play, but scared to dip our toe with no guaranteed games. Yeah, I completely understand that one. It's hard to get everyone to make a jump together, and that's honestly what the true bummer of my Necromunda collection is, that me, my buddy Ben, and our friend Max, we all were like, we're gonna play Necromunda, and I grabbed the was it Dark Uprising? Whatever it was, the set that came with all the terrain that people complained was too expensive. I grabbed that because if you didn't have any Necromunda stuff, it was a wonderful deal because you got the books and you got the terrain and the models and the gangs. So, like, you know, I understand for existing players it wasn't a solid value, but for me, with nothing, it was great. So we got all this stuff ready, and then lockdown happened, and it was just like... And then after that, you know, we waited, you know, because... you know, we're all being responsible and we're trying to take care of each other and that kind of stuff. And we weren't playing games with anybody for a while. But then when we got back to doing a little bit of gaming at Ben's house, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, well, we could play a game that we already know, or we could use our precious little bits of gaming time maybe once every like 2 to 3 weeks to try and learn this. And Necromunda, it's not as complicated as it looks when you first are handed the rule book. Because most of the rules you don't use, quite frankly. They're just kind of weird outliers all over the place. The core rules are pretty simple. But it's like, you know, we could spend time trying to learn this, or we can just do something we already know and enjoy the time that we have. And that's kind of where things tended to land, which I don't regret. It's just like we were so ready. Because Ion Air had painted up. He built the terrain for me, Ben did, and then I painted up his Orlok gang. Which I don't know if any of y'all remember that. Him, maybe some Scryer weaponry, that kind of stuff. The thing is, like, there are factions in this game that the only reason they're held back is because they really suck to try and get into. Like, Skaven's not an easy sell just because of the sheer number of models and the fact that the kits are spread. You know, if you made a good, I don't know, I mean, it doesn't have to be 1,000 points, but, you know, a solid starter to a Skaven army, and then set players up to be like, here's the basics, and then everything else you make purchase-wise afterwards is just fun. And I just think about those kinds of factions all the time. Like I said, stream is stuttering. Yeah, it's being so strange today, and everything on my end with my connection looks perfect. I'm not sure what's going on, if YouTube's having trouble or what. I can, if it gets too bad, y'all let me know, and I can actually, like, I'll stop the stream and then lower, like, frame rates and that kind of stuff on my end. See if we can get it working there. Let's see. Warcry is a lot faster in general, but if you're playing with a campaign, you could have 10 to 15 minute games, but up to 1 hour long games too. Yeah, the campaign stuff just with the only thing about the Warcry campaigns that I struggled in play was when one of you is doing a convergence battle, the other player can't. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, obviously, well, no, not even if you're playing in the same faction, because you have specific objectives and that kind of stuff. It just, like, I understand the idea, but the way that even the description, I was reading actually the rule book last night, it's like, you know, hey, if you have a regular club, you can do these campaign things together. It's like, that's awesome, but if you and your friends move at the same pace, that falls apart real quick because only one of you is going to be playing, you know, their convergence battles. And I thought that was a bit of a bummer. Let's see. Mantic Games is a company that... What's their main game? The not Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Kings of War. There we go. Let's see. Your voice is coming in super clear, just the picture. Okay. Yeah, honestly, you know, there's not a whole lot to look on this stream. Thank you, Spezia. I'm just going to press ahead. Like I said, there's not a ton to look at. I'm just painting trim on this guy, so, you know, what are you missing? As long as the voice comes, that's my moneymaker, you know. I did not like the convergence battle systems, honestly. I like the concept of it. I like the concept of saying, like, okay, you know, you have a pain story, and this is the mission you need to play. But when it gets to the point of like, okay, but you have to have an opponent that first of all wants to play it, you know, who wants. I don't know. And I think, you know, I think on some level they definitely learned from that, because if you look at the Crusade system, which uses some of the same concepts, it doesn't quite have that same rigidity when it comes to, like, you know, you have to play this mission. You must play this mission. You cannot proceed until you beat this mission, kind of a thing. They kind of eased off on some of that. Okay, this shoulder pad kind of opens up into a bit of a maw. I dig it. Let's see. Has a new place, Doug? Hope you guys are doing all right. It's going really well. Obviously, you know, unpacking takes an immense amount of time and energy. And so it's one of those weird things, like, I keep waiting for doing YouTube full time to feel normal, like just a normal workday kind of a thing. What my goal is, and kind of how I mapped out my life before we moved, is essentially record 2 videos a day and write notes for 2 videos a day, and that will actually like give me a fairly solid backlog of stuff. So I'll be working ahead of schedule, kind of a thing, and that way I'll have the freedom to do, you know, special projects, battle reports, because they take an immense amount of time to edit the way that I do them, that kind of stuff. And between, you know, all the unpacking, and then as soon as we got unpacked, my wife and I caught nasty colds, and so we've been battling that. It just feels like I haven't had a normal day quite yet, but we'll get there. It's a process. No one's ever made me feel like, oh, you're not, you know, not living up to your promises on what you were going to do when you went full time. It's like, you know, people are very understanding, like, moving sucks. Take your time, get well soon, kind of stuff. So that's been highly encouraging. I'm very hard on myself when it comes to, you know, I make promises about, like, battle reports are going to start and that kind of stuff, but people are more than understanding. I'm one of those people, I'm very hard on myself, but never learned the lesson to set realistic expectations or be okay with, you know, time frames changing. So yeah, question, Doug, do you think we're going to get 40K style with smaller board and move into a power level system with AOS? Well, functionally, we already have a power level system. We just don't use the same numbers. But like in terms of how things function, we already do that. I think power level was them trying to do what AOS does in 40K. You know, because I mean, that's the way, you know, our increments are different, but there's no difference between, like, every 10 Space Marines is 5 power level. I'm just making that number up. I don't know. And every set of clan rats is 80 points. Like, they're, you know, again, scale's different, but functionally they do the exact same thing. So I think that's fine. As far as the boards go, man, I hope so. I'll be honest with you, like, mechanically speaking, I am very much in love with this current edition of 40K. It makes me want to play games, and it's not even my favorite setting, obviously. I'm more of an AOS kind of guy. I like fantasy over sci-fi to an extent. But you know, in terms of, like, actual, like, gameplay, with this the new way that they're doing codexes, it is so friendly to new people, and I really am appreciating it. They've even changed the way, like, so it used to be in 40K where, you know, you buy a dude and he comes with blank, and you had to, like, okay, cross-reference, he comes with this, and So all you bought was, let's say, a Space Marine, right? He comes with a bolt pistol and a bolt rifle. You have to check to see how much each of those things cost, even though he comes with them. Now, they've just baked the basic whatever you get for buying the model thing into the price, and so they're just cutting out calculations here and there, and they're just simplifying everything. And that's really helpful for people like me who are just like, I signed up for a mini game, not a math exam, and I don't much want to do that. So, I don't know. Most people avoid power level, at least in 8th, because it was even more imbalanced. And that's true. It is true. But what's interesting, though, the difference between our points and power level and how they function is because the point, there's more room for variation in ours, right? Saying Skaven, right, is, say a block of dudes is, what am I going to pick on? We'll go Stormcast. Liberators, 100 points. Boom. 5 dudes. Having it be 100 points versus, say, like 5 power level, you can bump that to 110. You can bump it down to 90. There's more, there's more room on the dial to turn to make it better or worse. Whereas going from 5 to 6 power level in a 50 power level game is actually quite huge. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like it, but when you stack how many units you can take total, those little 1s and 2s, they're an entire unit and that kind of stuff. So it's just, I feel like the changes, quite frankly, are more impactful. And so that's a hard one to kind of articulate. Wargamer Willie, oh, thank you so much, buddy. If these, I got to support it. Thanks so much. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, they are going to continue. Tomorrow we'll do a proper while you're reforging. I had another date night planned. If you guys are familiar with how I do date nights on this channel, I think you'll enjoy it. Because they're always the most fun thing to me. 100%. Because I get to hang out with people I like and ask them questions and get to know y'all. But so I just, yeah, I like it quite a bit. So I think that is the difference that they have learned when it comes to 40k and AOS, is like that granularity control that they have built in with AOS just by the sheer difference in numbers. Like I honestly think if power level were in increments of 100 and they had more dials to push, I bet you'd see more people playing it, assuming they updated it regularly, which they didn't at first. But here's the funny thing about power level, I will say, is it goes between being an optional way to play and being a core mechanic. And I think even as someone who's not hyper into the game system, I'm not a 40k master or whatever, Lord knows. But I mean, what I'm saying is the things like army composition, how many units you can have in reserve, and those kinds of things, power level matters for them, but not so much in terms of you can be playing points, but power level will still be relevant. Well, that means you need to update power level at least as much as you update points, and that's kind of where I think a lot of people struggle, because GW is not super fast on the draw when it comes to updating power level, even though, again, they're incorporating it into the core bits of the game. What are the Vanguard for? I'm paying this up for a buddy. So I was trying to be a little bit conservative when it came to spending money on catacombs and that kind of stuff, because all the things that I love in life came out at the exact same time. Broken Realms, Marathi, and catacombs and all that kind of stuff. And so I was trying to save a little bit of money, and my buddy Craig offered to split it with me. And so he took the K-Knights. I got the Scions of the Flame and basically everything else. He was kind enough to just shaved a couple bucks off for me. And I am way more invested in this demon's crotch than I have ever thought I would be when I woke up this morning. So, yeah, he did that, and then also in that box, he asked if I could paint up a Varengard, so he could have other people paint up, which I've seen done before, just having various friends and that kind of stuff. I painted up one for Jack on rerolling ones. Obviously, I got this guy. At some point, I am going to get my own unit. I should. But yeah. And right now, I'm just blocking out all of the colors. We'll worry about highlights and stuff later. And get the silver going. Let's see. Hey, your Broken Realms vid in the past week were awesome. Not sure if this is the coolest Aegis storyline so far. Thank you so much, Nick. That's super kind of you. It does mean the world to me. I'm trying to. So someone asked me the question, and I've been struggling with it. What do I like more? Broken Realms Marathi or Wrath of the Everchosen? And I gotta say, I think I like Wrath of the Everchosen more. I think, in terms of like the actual story, because I feel like because it was more of a self-contained story, I got more into it. I'm invested in this demon's crotch. Yep, exactly. I got more invested in the kind of the micro of the story a bit more. Like, it followed one person, Catacross, and kind of how he trounced around one specific area. And I don't know. It just seemed very easy to follow, and it had fewer characters, but ones that we know, like it had Lady Olander and that kind of stuff, who you don't get a screen time for, so to speak. So I think I like that one more. I certainly, one thing I can say for certain is I liked the campaign section in Wrath of the Everchosen more. Like, when it comes to the part of the book where it's like, here's how you can recreate this with your friends, which to me is a very important part of that book, because, that's where you get thematic missions and cool stories and, all this kind of stuff. Like, being able to have new ways to play the same old thing is a very important part of any campaign book, in my opinion. The ones in Broken Realms Marathi are very strict on like what they expect you to bring to the table every game. And I don't know. It seemed so exacting that you're like, okay, well, if you're not playing Daughters of Cain, Deepkin, or what, this campaign section has minimal value to you at best. More realistically, you're never going to touch those games because, again, what they're trying to tell, I think, was a bit too specific with that campaign, whereas any army can play Wrath of the Everchosen missions because they're just more about representing the scene rather than the actual events. Would kind of be my surmising. So yeah, let's see. Marathi would have been cooler if only we had a little Marathi up till now. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Like if it was a build-up, but then again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if people would have been as stoked if she wasn't as cool as she has been. Because she's been straight baller up till this point, story-wise, of just like, Dolly Parton working 9 to 5, cranking out her own plans and machinations, that kind of stuff. She's been rad this whole time. Let's see. I actually want his stud things to be silver. Here we go. I would also like to point out that both Marathi and Archeon didn't and don't incorporate Slaanesh. See the heads on Dorgar. That they don't have any Slaaneshi bits about them. Yeah, I just, if let's say, hypothetically, Games Workshop was looking for a way to sunset our current understanding of Slaanesh. They respect the whole design idea that they had back in the cocaine benders of the 80s, and we're like, actually, we kind of want to move away from not the hedonistic stuff, but more of like the flagrant sexualization of things. I'm all for it. I understand some people love it. It's not my fave. Honestly, it's not even the content that is not my favorite. It's just when players get a little too weird about it, to be frank. A little too aggressive because they feel like they have permission to be creepy because, it's in the lore. That kind of stuff. If they wanted to move away from that, I totally get it. And honestly, this is the way to do it. Create a grand narrative, a rebirth of some kind where, those things matter. It's, Slaanesh isn't dead, but we've just taken this concept in a new direction. I'm all for it. Scheming 9 to 5. What a way to get ascension. Betray all my friends. Gonna get some bad attention. I love it. She's out there. She's just doing her best, Let's see. I think it's more interesting when it's not so sexualized. Agreed. And that's the thing. Like, the idea of, like, the vanity of searching for perfection and always needing to be the best and what you sacrifice for those things. Like, man, I think that's a much more interesting tale. And also, like, just other stuff, like gluttony, I think could look really cool model-wise, Get some chunky boys. Why don't we have more ogres that are Slaanesh themed? We're just kind of building up that Ushabti bone just a bit more. Let's see. Less sex and more drugs for rock and roll. Absolutely. The Harp Herald is a fantastic way to show excess. I agree. Yep. Yeah, or just like weaponized pain, right? I mean, that's kind of the core idea, I think. So, that's a thing where it's hard. I understand that some people just are really into certain aesthetics, and that's fine. People get weird about it, then I'm like, no, we don't need a game together. I can go over here to this other place where you're not being a creep. Or conversely, I've had in moments where it's like a gentleman walked up being a little too we'll say roleplay-y with his Slaanesh army, and he was doing that to a young lady who was. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stand here just in case he gets a little bit too much. And he did, and I had to ask him to tone it down. It was at a game store I was a fan of, and I was just like, dude, you can't make people uncomfortable. Like, I don't care how much you want to role play. Like, you're still in a public space, playing against a stranger. I'm going to make my Slaanesh cherry bashed with ogre. Oh, that sounds awesome. People trying to make Slaanesh corrupted Sisters of Battle is the single cringiest thing. I have not seen that, and I am not gonna look for it. Understand. Anyway, so how I got there, I'm sorry. I went on a little tangent there about people who are too much into Slaanesh. Or not too much into Slaanesh, you know what I mean. But I think that if they wanted to change directions, I definitely think that's probably one of the best ways to do it. They created this awesome narrative, and they just changed direction. And you contrast that with how they did the same thing with the birth of AOS, right? To them, in their minds, like, oh yeah, we saw the end times as a grand send-off, an awesome story. And you're like, you just killed everything everybody loves. That's not a grand story. Whereas I think this same that coming from that same position in terms of like having an epic story that encapsulates everything and a send off, and it's a way to like introduce something new in a positive way that people are excited about. So they're learning. We can't ask them to not make mistakes, but we can ask them to learn from them, right? Isn't that the whole thing? Let's see. I made a Necron hedonism bot. Oh man, that's amazing. Hedonism bot is my wife and I's favorite. Whenever one of us messes up on something, we both go, I regret nothing. Sorry, I missed the start. Was fixing a pool underwater. I'm frozen. Oh my gosh. Well, that could change dramatically based on what part of the country you're in, I suppose. If you're in Tejas, it's like, it's a frigid 70 degrees outside. But if you're in Michigan, you're like, oh god. Abandon all ye hope as you like jump into the pool. Did I miss an epic rant? No. No real rant. I just got off topic. I was talking about the birth of the newborn, the new Slaanesh-ish character I'm hoping to learn more about on, what, Saturday? Isn't that when the preview is, I believe? Yep, Saturday morning. What is going on, man? So, I'm going to kill the music and see if that helps my stream thing, just because it's being so strange. I apologize. I try not to have it be like just dead silence, because honestly, I'm not that interesting to hold full attention like that, but we'll see. Trying to figure out why it's being all glitchy today. I had to do a thing where I had to reset my settings, and so I'm wondering if maybe it pushed it back to like a different setup in terms of like, you know, output, stream output, and that kind of stuff. I don't know. Technology. It is what it is. It's going to do what it wants. Let's see. Let me pull my chat back up. I seem to have misplaced it. There we go. It's North California. It's 50 degrees outside. Yeah. Question from Brent. Thinking back on the Guardian repaint, they might just need a wash, but I want to retexture the base. Can I dip method them after I've done the base? Can I dip method them? I do not know. I will, I honestly have never done the dip thing, so I can't quite tell you on that one. If anyone has, shout out. I don't really know what that does painting-wise. Like what that'll do, texture and all that kind of stuff. That one I can't answer with even my fake pseudo-confidence that I try to put on for everybody. Doug, what's the best weapon for Varengard? I honestly didn't even know that they had multiple weapons. This isn't mine. This is for somebody else. I've honestly never looked at their war scroll. But I can tell you, based on the fact that they play in Slaves to Darkness, anything with Rend, the most Rend is the best idea, simply because as a faction, they don't have a lot of it. So that tends to be my go-to suggestion, is like, whatever gives you the most Rend, do that thing. Let's see. I have stumped Doug with such a dumb question. Oh, no. I didn't know they had weapon options. I thought they were like just ensorcelled weapons, that kind of thing. It's just what I assumed. I've only ever seen them with the swords, to be honest with you. Because the only times I've ever handled a Varangard is when I painted this one and as I painted Jax. So, and that's just what they all had. So, out of my confidence, I'm gonna say sword, because it's what everybody else is doing. Hey, just dialed in from UK. Just started back into Warhammer. Last time was back in 1995. Nice. Wait, hold on. Let me know if you can see or hear me. Okay, someone tell me if I am back. It looks like I'm back to streaming. Okay, thank you. Sweet. Okay, sorry, not sure what happened there. Again, having weird stuff today. Gilman Flesh, as I was saying before, the internet rudely told me to shut up, has become my favorite wash. That's the contrast paint, using it as a wash. You're back, Boston Nova, thank you. The picture's better. Weird, I wonder if I just had some problems and I just needed to reset, because the stream like straight up crashed and I logged out and back in on my end. I don't know. I know the other day YouTube went down, which is just like, oh my god, end of the world, kind of stuff for many people. Maybe it's just having trouble lately. I understand. It's 2020. We're all in a tough place. It's all good. I'm just kind of going over this with a little bit of Gilliman Flesh to kind of sharpen up some of those Balthazar gold bits. What do you do Gilliman Flesh over? Honestly, a lot of stuff. So I do it. It's a great recess shade for yellow, honestly, as I've been doing the Imperial Fist things. Just run it into the seams and it looks fantastic. I do it for golds. Any kind of earthy color, honestly. It really is just a great paint. Right now, I'm doing it over the Balthazar gold trim. That is all over this dude. It just adds a little bit of depth to it. Looks good. But it doesn't it doesn't dramatically change the color or anything. I think that's kind of the big thing. It works with the color of the paint. Let's see. Close to finishing my Carriage and Overlords. 2,000 points, 70% finished. Nice. And then you're going to grab the holiday bundle and have like 18,000 more ships to paint. I'm on a boat. Yeah, do it. I tell you, I made the mistake. I kind of mentioned this towards the beginning of the stream, but I have more people now. I made the mistake of rereading City of Secrets when they have a holiday bundle that's all Tzeentch focused coming out. Terrible idea. It's a great book, by the way. If anyone's looking to get another AOS fix. But it'll make you want a Tzeentch and or Free Guild army, I'll tell you that much. Let's see. All I want to do is play Warcry. I want to get the narrative going, where you play on both starters the same thing, using as well the entrance to Catacombs. Yeah. Honestly, the most interesting looking campaigns to me are the ones that use both the normal boards and Catacombs. Like, because it kind of makes it feel like the Catacombs are like a place. You go into them kind of a deal. And then you come out and you go kind of work yourself around your target and then crash into them at the final battle or convergence or whatever. I like that quite a bit. It feels more dynamic than just a simple dungeon crawler. Incorporating both, I think, seems really cool. So you're getting that gross mouth thing that's coming out of his shoulder. Let's see. Gods, no. Yeah, I certainly talk pirate jargon when I play them. Nice. Doug, first time tuning in, long time stalker. Well, thank you, Vladimir. Happy to have you. I don't know. I got a. Speaking of stalkers, I got a wonderful email from a viewer last night. It just made my day about, he just thanked me for the content and just kind of explained some stuff that was going on in his life. And he's just like, provided like an escape for me. And that's honestly, that's what it's all about. It's just giving people a break from the real world. I joke a lot about being Bob Rossi, but my wife and I actually watch Bob Ross every single night because it helps us fall asleep and relax. And one of the things that I really do not emulate in the sense of like copy everything he says, but in the way of like, tone and demeanor, is just saying like, do whatever you want, right? His big thing is on the canvas, you're God, essentially, right? And it's so funny to hear him talk like that because it sounds so intense, but it's the truth of just like, when you learn to paint, you can do whatever. And that's the same thing here. Just like I put up a post on Instagram and Twitter, and it did really well. Of just like, it's a meme, but it's meant to be like a sincere, encouraging one of just nobody cares about mold lines. Stop caring about mold lines, or certainly never call other people out on theirs. Just be a cool person. And it's weird the number of responses of just people were really crappy to me at my local store because I didn't drill out gun barrels, and you're like, who cares? Who cares? Why do they have an opinion on your model? That's my opinion. You think a Mauler Fiend could be converted into a Death Guard Demon Prince? Man, I've seen weirder stuff than that. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Why not? Doug says, why not? Let's see, let's grab some washes. We're going to start working on the horse boy himself. No, Agrax. There we go. He's brown. How are you liking the new area? Is there much AOS in the scene? Nope. I actually sold the Nurgle boys. I was just wanted to start a new project, and I because of the generosity of the person who bought them, I was able. I donated 10% of the proceeds to Extra Life, which is a thing for kids who are hurting in the world and that kind of stuff. It was just a wonderful charity thing, and I felt really good about it. And what else? So I'm in between armies right now, which is a dangerous place to be as Games Workshop debuts all the holiday bundles because I want all of them. Not all of them, but some of them. And but I'm settling in well. There is not much AOS in the area, to be perfectly honest with you. It is a bit of a bummer, I will admit. But 40k seems to be prevalent here, as well as, oddly enough, Warcry and Underworlds and those kinds of games, which, certainly not a bad thing. I like those games as well. So it's one of those deals where it's like, at that point, if I know I'm probably not going to use it a lot, like, what am I going to commit to as far as painting an entire army? Because I do want to have an AOS army. I live now about 3 hours away from where Adepticon is going to be eventually when stuff kind of settles down. So it's like, obviously, I want to have an AOS army. Faux show. At the same time, it's like, how often am I actually going to ever use it kind of a deal? And so that kind of gets my mind thinking a little bit. I'm not quite sure how that's all going to pan out. And so for those kinds of reasons, I lean towards more elite stuff. Or things that I can use in Warcry, which honestly is most armies, let's be honest. Yeah. Let's throw a little bit of color on here. Gits. Nick says Gits. Yep. Yes, let's take my army fatigue and just crank it to 11. Let's see. Elias, Broken Realms has me most excited about Warhammer since I started back in 6th Ed 40k. Whoa, that's awesome. Do you wake up when the overly loud outro music of a Bob Ross video kicks in? Every single time. It is miserable. Like, I don't know what happened at the old PBS stations to make it so that no one understood audio balance, but mother of God. When those videos end, you feel it in your bones because the outro music is just deafening. Let's see. You mentioned mold lines and now I'm here. Elric, hey, what's up? For what it's worth, Elric, when I read I was listening to the Rolling Bad podcast as I was doing hobby the day that I posted that, and I read every single one of your replies in your dry, sarcastic tone. And I'm not sure if everyone else did on that thread, but I enjoyed the heck out of it. But it's good to know all you got to do is mention mold lines. Just it's kind of the Anchorman equivalent of when he gets the giant seashell and like, Anchorman assemble, and then there's the mold line hater guy. That's how you get him. Let's see. I'm very curious about what big reveals are going to be on Saturday. Any thoughts? Oh, thank you, Rob. What would I want? So my thought is, the name of the reveal thing is Decadence and Decay. I think it's pretty clear at this point the Decay part is going to be the next book for the Death Guard in 40k. Just between the articles that they've been putting out and the kind of the screenshots of what I'm going to call the Nurgle Bong. If you haven't seen that, it's exactly what it looks like. For as much guff as the painting handle got, I don't feel like people are making fun of that thing enough. It's that 40k terrain for Death Guard. Beyond that, I don't really quite know, to be honest with you. As far as the Decadence part goes, I'm hoping that they're going to show off what, I try to curb my expectations, but on the less exciting end, which is still exciting, I think it's either going to be the next chapter of the Broken Realms thing, because now they have this nice setup, for Slaanesh to make a big move or debut or rebirth or whatever you want to call it. So there's that. On the flip side, if they go full hog, right, on the other end of the spectrum of being excited about things, something like, the Hedonites Mortal range, that kind of stuff, I think could be really, really cool. So that's kind of my thought, is it's somewhere in between those two. We're obviously going to get some reveals for Necromunda because of the preview they showed like today, where it's very clearly a Vanzar shoulder, arm and weapon outload, which is cool because I love Necromunda. But yeah, that's about all I got as far as guesses. Sarcasm doesn't always come through on Twitter. Yeah, buddy, I get you. But I totally am on board. And that's one of those things, like, I think I don't do a ton of social media, like replies and that kind of stuff, because of that exact reason, right? Tone does not convey. But I tend to reply to people who I've heard their voices, right? Like, like I said, I heard your comments in like your sly sarcastic voice, and I'm like, obviously we're having fun, right? Come on, guys, we're all having a good time here. Whereas, like, if I don't know somebody personally or I haven't heard them speak, I tend to be like, I don't know how to take this. I don't know if you're cool or not. I don't know if you're being mean. Let's see. Give me 1 second here. I'm just looking for a paint. So I got that for highlights. I want to start working on his tail and stuff. So let's do. Need this. We're going to do some Emperor's Children for the deep scars and stuff like that. And we're going to tidy it up with Rainbow Brown. Here we go. The finest kush grown in Papa's garden. Oh my god, can you imagine his? Okay, some cedar dust. So at this point, I'm going to start blocking out all the bone-colored things, like horns and that kind of stuff. Just started AOS, played my first 2 games this weekend. I played Gristlegore. Now my friends don't want to play with me. That happens. Well, it depends. Did you choose Gristlegore because it was the best, or did you choose it because you liked it the most? I think that's kind of my thought. It's typically where I err on the side of, I had a similar situation when a group wanted to do a Path to Glory, and then we had a totally new player. No idea about any of the game stuff. Like, they were new to, like, literally, like, gaming, you know, miniature gaming as a hobby. And they were like, I want to play, these guys look cool, Flesh Eater Courts. And people were like, no. And I was like, everybody shut up. Everybody calm down. They're allowed to pick stuff that looks cool because, newsflash, these models are cool as hell. But it's one of those things, you know, you read online that nobody can ever have fun games against Flesh Eater Courts, and you get in that headspace, and it's like, that's just not true. You just gotta explain, hey, listen, this game, balance is an illusion, and your army's really good, so since you're new, you're probably gonna make a lot of mistakes, and it's not gonna come up a whole lot anyway, but this faction does have the potential to give some feel-badsies. And that's it. Unless you're playing like a Maverick who's just going to pick up the game first thing and be like, oh, I understand how to... I got this on lock. In which case, you know, cool, good for them. Let them go to an event and get their tail kicked in there. And just picking out some teeth. There we go. But your courts look amazing. Yeah. That's the thing, you know, I feel like I look at the stats that are painstakingly put together for so many factions, right? I mean, you got like the Dan and AOS Shorts has that huge database of knowledge that was kind of shared over on the community page. And, you know, great stuff. But I feel like we're reaching a point where the sub-factions become more important than the army they're playing. So, like, you can see, like, oh, here's the win percentage of Flesh Eater Courts. Like, well, no, a lot of that's the win percentage of Gristlegore, specifically. And that matters because Flesh Eater Courts isn't a problem. Gristlegore is a problem. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff, where that conversation gets had. And in some respects, that's kind of why I like the Auric War Clan book, because the Big Wall is its own allegiance. It gets categorized differently. I'm like, okay, thank you. That the Big Wall is nasty. I played it when we were doing. Oh, I played it a couple times, but most recently we did a big mega battle over on Reeling Ones, and it's like, it's gross. It can be anyway. But yeah. Let's see. Although I thought they were garbage when I started playing, but I got into them, and anyway, because naked to do hard. Yeah. No, Fire Slayers are rad. I had a Fire Slayer army. Jack has it now, as with darn near most of my projects. And I like the army, and I like the concept of how it plays. I just got tired of painting the same stinking model. Like, everything is naked baby plus blank, naked baby plus flail, naked baby plus axe, naked baby plus blank. You know what I mean? After a while, I was like, I'm tapping out. I'm done. I need to paint something different. And then, of course, right after I got rid of them, the new book came out with, like, the Forge and all that cool stuff that's different. I'm like, oh, okay, of course, cool. I see how GW is treating me. I think sometimes I honestly think that GW is just like, what army is Doug playing now? Make models for it quick before he changes, and they just can't keep up. They wish they could, but they can't. Oh, here's a skull. I'm just trying to pick out all the random skulls that Games Workshop decided to put all over this dude's weapons and stuff. Okay, and just for last, got the gross horn thing. All right. Let's see. Ooh, question of the day from Will. Do you prefer demon crotches to naked babies, Doug? I'm going to say there's more variety in the demon crotches, because you got, like, the soul grinder crotch, which is like, he's got, like, spider legs. That's a very different crotch compared to, like, all the Fire Slayer crotches. They're all the same, So I'm going to say demon crotches. Bold. I know. Oh, man. I was having this discussion with somebody who wanted to get into Fire Slayers. Like, so where's the rest of the range? And I was like, this is it, bro. This is it. This is the main reason why some people don't play them. It's like, there's no cavalry, that kind of stuff. If nothing else, I mean, there should at least be a few Duarden who are, like, surfing upon, waves of magma or something. Something equally ridiculous as the rest of it all. So what we're doing now, I'm just dropping a little bit of pink into where all these scars are. And when we go back and after a wash and we highlight them, it's going to look like deep gouges in the skin. But the thing about doing these kinds of gouges is that you always have this, I call it the ugly phase. It's just stuff doesn't look good. It looks too clashy color-wise. But if you just hang in there, it will all look good at the end. Sometimes it's hard to do that, though. You get a little impatient and you're like, oh, this just isn't looking the way I want it to, and people start, painting over stuff. It's like, no, let it hang in there. Pink is very translucent, so when it dries, it won't look so, I guess, garish. Let's see. Very confused. Used to buy armies, paint them, and sell them. Made me a super good painter. I mean, Elias, that's what I do. And I get guff. I also get guff because every single army I get, I'm like, this is the one, guys. And now my audience is trained to be like, shut up, Doug. This isn't the one. You'll never find the one. The one is an illusion. The one is the friends you made along the way, and you know it. Okay, I think that's awesome. So then we'll go with a brown wash to bring that pink down a smidge, and then we'll start building up the Doom Bull Brown, which we can start doing everywhere else. This is how you paint fast. Right? You just work on the areas you can, and if it needs time to dry, you just move somewhere else. Armies for you are just flavor of the season. That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, I went from 0 to a fairly good-sized Imperial Fist army just because I wanted to paint yellow. But it just kind of panned out that way with a bunch of people being like, I got these Space Marines, I wanted the Necron part of Xbox. Here you go. It just builds up that way. Why do you always get rid of old armies? Why not just keep it in a box? Because at the rate that I like to do different projects, I would need a storage unit, and I am morally opposed to having so much crap that I need to put it somewhere else. Also, honestly, when do you guys know anybody who loves going to garage sales? Okay, and this is a strange question, but hear me out. Part of this hobby for me, or things that I enjoy, is I like getting a good deal. By that, what I mean is the flipping of something is also part of the fun for me. And it requires a very specific kind of mindset. Like, for example, I don't get emotionally attached to any of the projects I do. It's one of those, it just has to do with how I view the products that we're buying. So that'd be me. Yes, my wife's mom is a garage sale fanatic. Then she has her own garage sale. Yeah, exactly. And I like that. I like the scouting around, trying to find something cool. It's all part of it. That's kind of how I view it. Because I think that's just as much fun, because it's one of those things that, honestly, you want to talk about, I do enjoy, what was I going to say? Oh, sorry, I got a little sidetracked here looking at comments. Most of the funding that made the early years of this channel possible came from that exact thing. I would buy a project, start it, flip it, trade up for the next one, start it, trade it, flip the next one, and just kind of go and go and go, and then all of a sudden, hey, I sold this one for a bit extra because I traded up, so to speak, and now I can buy a webcam. I did this. No, now I found a computer that was on sale. I have the money and savings to snag it. Boom. That kind of stuff, and just built it up incrementally. Which, honestly, is why if you go back in time to some of the earlier videos on this channel, it gets real cringy real quick. But again, it's just how I enjoy things. Doug, you think Stormcast will stop always getting their teeth kicked in lore-wise? No. I see their teeth getting kicked in as a direct response to when AOS came out. People were accurate in saying Stormcasts are boring because there's no stakes involved, right? When we didn't know much about them and like the cost of reforging and like what it does to you, it really was like there's no downsides. They're just, chaos has near infinite numbers, but none of that matters if you have a good guy that never dies. And of course, so I think the teeth getting kicked in aspect comes down to they just really, really want to reinforce people. Hey, good guys don't have it all going for them. It's always 2 minutes to midnight kind of a thing. We're always on the brink of some terrible tragedy. That would be my my take on it. I'm going to grab a detail brush here. Well, I got stakes now after Broken Realms. Agreed. I agree with that. I think, honestly, and I wonder how much of that is going to play into their story going forward, because that does interest me. That now Archaon has tools, and tricks and that kind of stuff to be able to stop them from arcing back to Azir. Like, that is huge for them. So, I don't know. Hopefully that'll play into something cool. Corvus Cole was perma-killing Stormcast before it was cool. Exactly, yeah, he was... Man. He really was my favorite villain that they ever did. All of those, like, Wave 1 is what I'm going to call it. Like, the Rumgate Wars and... even just the Mighty Battles book, that kind of stuff. That whole level of champion that we had at one point. I love all those guys. I did that video on Efrix, and I was like, man, what a trip down memory lane. That was so fun. But I don't know. I think they kind of go back and forth sometimes. It feels like at GW between we need to appeal to the old Fantasy Battles crowd. Yeah, we need to create some new characters for the current fans, you know what I mean, who don't have a concept. So that's like, because it seems like they were pretty well set on not, or having like homages to old world characters, but not necessarily, reinventing them. And then they're like, actually scratch that. Gotrek gets coughed up into nowhere here. We're just like, oh, okay, so he's alive now? Okay, interesting. Cool. Oh, I missed some parts with the Xandru Dust. Gotta grab those. They've won a bunch. JW's making other factions. Yeah. Let's see. Thought it was an extension of Realm of Chaos. Didn't think he can use it outside of the 8 points. Well, that's the thing. So it wasn't... Because they had parts of the Stormcast arcing back before that thing showed up. So even though Sigmar, it seems like, can't send his Stormcast there, like, they can still arc back. Because that's why I say, like, Venbreck was one of the few survivors. He wasn't necessarily the only one, because others could have made it out in time. And when the spell did start, it didn't necessarily, like, bring him it pulled him straight into a war shrine, which wasn't always there the entire time. So it's like, we don't quite know what like the limits of the spell are, simply because we haven't experienced it in any other context outside of the 8 points. But it seems to me like it doesn't require being in the 8 points. That is my take, but again, like I said, the second, we see those kinds of characters outside of the 8 points, we'll have a definite answer, for sure. And that'll come. Grab good old non-loyal. Lantern guy from Stormcast can also, from Night Hunt, yeah, he's a man. If there was one book that I could just pick to get a new battle tome, there's some great options, but I gotta say, like, I think Night Hunt got done dirty by just not even I'm not even gonna call it like battle tome bloat or creep, like some people like, every new book's the best, that kind of stuff, and that does happen. But I think specifically for them in the Stormcast one, so much has changed with the evolution of the game and that kind of stuff. I think they suffer more from being the first battle tomes out there, rather than like, it's not so much that everything is like, oh my god, everything can kill Night Haunt so easily, that kind of stuff. It's more just like, the game just kind of evolved around them in new ways, and they just haven't kept up. Where it's that kind of different level of like, no amount of points fixes can really help when you literally can't kill anything because you don't have any attack or rend or anything like that. That kind of stuff where it's like the game just changed around them. So if I could pick a book and be like, you have the coolest models, you just need to give me more ways to play with them. That kind of stuff, I think, is really, really important. In agreement with you? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just, like I said, there's a few of those books where it is not about them being a good or bad army. They can play objectives, they can, do this, that kind of stuff. It has more to do with the fact that, like, is Age of Sigmar as a system conducive to what this faction was intended to do when they designed it? And I just don't think that it's the same. I think the game has just gone in such a cool new direction, but not everyone has kept up with it the same way. 40k example of that exact same concept is demons. They literally do not function the way that it seems that 40k is playing now. To be honest, I think we need more Night Haunt models. I think they have a solid range compared to some other factions for sure. I don't disagree. I think everybody wants new models for sure, right? I will say, compared to Space Marines, they have been pretty tame in just dumping Stormcast models out left and right like they do for Space Marines. Like, I tune in. I don't do a whole lot of social media for my hobby stuff. Like, I'm not in a lot of AOS groups or anything like that, just because people complain and are annoying sometimes. But I hopped into this 40k group just for a hot second to ask a quick question. And the amount of vitriol of like, Space Marines are always getting blah, 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 and they're ignoring us other players. And I'm like, my God. I can't remember. What was the last Stormcast Eternal model they got? Like, I remember there's that cool, maybe it was like a new opening store exclusive of like, was it a guy or a gal, like, with her hammer down on like a an orc's head or something like that. I just can't think of it. But, you know, in AOS we have stuff like Basic Chaos need models desperately. Seraphon. Skaven just needs a refresh, I think. That's honestly... Even if I ever had the gumption to do a Skaven army again, which I just don't foresee happening, the idea of paying for like that the Reagan era, you know, Gatling gun guy made out of metal, never gonna happen. I'm never buying that. Nope times 1,000. Nope to the n squared. Did a couple stormcasts smash a war shrine? I guess did they release them? I don't remember if they released them. I'll have to check again. Was Malign Portent's Deuter maybe? Yeah, maybe. I'm still wondering what those two rumor engines are. We have a ghoul hand and a sword, and a bug coming out of cracked eggs. Yeah, the bug coming out of cracked eggs could be something for like... Well, I guess they're done with Blackstone Fortress. Never mind. I say there's Xeno species that are like that in 40k. Hold on a second. I gotta really shake this guy. This guy's coming along. I like him. I am going to do some rust effects and that kind of stuff on the metal, just to add a little pop of color with the Nihilic Oxide. And then I'm going to spend some time working on his face and that kind of stuff. So, Clan Eshin Army. People love Clan Eshin. Oh man, this paint is old. I need to get some new Screaming Skull. Here we go. Let's see. 2021 will have people in a rock and a hard place with the new 40k Xenos being teased and Umberneth. That's honestly so a fantastic channel. If you guys have not watched it and you're into more competitive stuff, Warhammer Weekly. Vince said something, and I think it was like 2 years ago now, and I stand by it, of just like the reason I don't get excited or put stock into any of the rumor engine stuff anymore, like I don't even really honestly look at it, is because Games Workshop is now at a point where they have so many freaking games that like anything could almost be for anything at this point, you know? It's so hard to tell what stuff is for. Like it could be, that could be you know, a bug thing from Necromunda coming in, or a Tau, you know, maybe they're redoing whatever the Vespids or whatever they're called. That kind of stuff where it's like, man, there's just so much happening now that, you know, you can kind of assert that anything is kind of whatever you want it to be at this point. So I'm just like, do I need to guess? Not really. I just lean back and I'm like, hey, HW, take me for a ride, you know? Whatever you got, I'm here for it. Flip the lazy boy back, ready to receive excitement. Which is why I honestly don't do much in the way of like speculation videos and that kind of stuff. Let's see. Rob's show. I don't know what that is. Rob's show. I don't know if I know Rob. In the chat? Question, can you do a review video for Punga miniatures? They have awesome looking rat men. You know what? I'll tell you what. If because I have reached out to so many miniature creators to, you know, quite frankly, ask for stuff to review and that kind of thing, and I get shut down so much. I will review anything that anyone sends to me, pretty much. And so, you know, reach out to Punga Miniatures, be like, hey, here's this guy, T plus Tuff, said he's into it. Maybe if they have fans, you know, asking rather than than me, making it seem like I'm just begging for free stuff. Go for it. But yes, I would. To answer your question, would I? Yes. I did that for a while. I was like, just, hey guys, can I offer my services as both a reviewer and like I can do painting tutorials and that kind of stuff. And just a lot of companies are just like, ignore. I was like, all right, fair enough. I'm sure they get hit up by YouTubers all the time that, just want free stuff and don't want to fulfill their end of the bargain, so to speak, when it comes to making meaningful content that helps people make smart decisions with their purchases and that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, honestly, when I don't do a ton of reviews of like physical products, but when I do, that's kind of the core crux of like, is this something you would want to spend your money on, yay or nay? Darkest Dungeon board game. I bought it like an idiot. I've never heard of that one. Was wondering, will you continue with these streams? They are pretty great while doing something else. Yes, I will. Actually, I plan to do quite a few. I might take, after the Saturday, I'm going to do like a review of whatever a reveal review. But after that, I might take a short break just because I want to build up a library of content in the background so that I'm working ahead. But after that, I do plan on aggressively, it sounds so intense. It's just me with a miniature talking calmly, but there's like death metal music in the background. No, but I do plan on doing a lot of streams. That was honestly something I was looking forward to going full time, is just, I have a life philosophy, and streaming, and this is relevant to streaming, so hang out with me. But the more that you just like do the trust exercise free fall with life, at least for me when it comes to internet content creation, the more awesome people are when it comes to supporting me and that kind of stuff. And so the reason I say that is because like the numbers for this week with Broken Realms Marathi and the streams I did, and even just talking about the battle boxes, have all been huge and incredibly humbling, to the point where it's like, oh man, like I didn't make a mistake in going full time. Like, people really do want to hang out with me, and the more that I just throw myself out there, the more support there is, and I just really want to be hanging out with people. That's all there is to it. Darkest Dungeon minis were tempting, but I really wanted the Crimson Court. Darkest Dungeon is a video game you need to play, and they made a board game version of it. Okay. I will check that out. I've never heard of it. What's your favorite Warcry warband, Elias? I love my Corvus Cabal. If you haven't seen it, they're somewhere on my Instagram. Way back. No, they just... I love the creepy bird theme that they got going. I think that is just the coolest thing. Weirdly enough, even though there's no three-dimensional terrain, I think they're better in Catacombs than they ever were on the base board game style stuff, because they let them interact with walls in a unique way. And it's like, they didn't need much. They just needed a little oomph. And turns out when you use the walls as terrain to trigger effects and abilities, it's real good. Because walls are everywhere, and the buildings with 3 inches of height necessarily weren't. We love you, Doug. Now get to work, you slave. Exactly. My schedule is busy, and you're my go-to source for AOS material. Aw, thank you. Also, what do you plan on talking about lore-wise in the future? I know, Cody. Autocorrect kills me every single time. Let's see. So future stuff. I want to do a video on Karngrad, which is the city in the 8 points of Warcry. Varanthax's Maw, which is the setting. It's the setting for Catacombs, but it's also where all of the Broken Realms Marathi stuff took place. So I kind of want to do a better video as kind of a bolt-on to that series, just in case anyone's looking for more context Beyond that, the awesome folks over at Cubicle 7 who do the AOS RPG Soulbound sent me a copy of their latest expansion, which basically it kind of jumps into Anvilgard, and I haven't had time because I was doing all the Broken Realm stuff to jump into where it takes place timeline wise with the events of Broken Realms, but I mean, it would be the same city, the structures there and everything like that. So I can always just make an addendum at the end and be like, things are changing, Oh, actually, I needed that brown. So I could just do that. What else do I got? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm always looking for suggestions. So I need to get back into doing that. When I first started the channel, I used to do this thing where I'd be like, hey, if you have a video request, leave it in the comments. And I used to assign credit to it. Like I take a screenshot of the idea. And who sent it in and that kind of stuff. I need to get back into doing that. That was a fun one. It just got very cumbersome to try and keep track of that many suggestions. Like my folder form just kind of exploded to the point where it got a little intimidating to even open the file. Which is, ultimately a good problem to have, but is still a suggestion management problem. So, yeah. I watch your AOS videos. I don't even own or play it. It says a lot about your content. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, honestly, and that's that kind of feedback honestly means a lot to me because it gives me courage to do things that maybe people aren't playing. Like, I also enjoy talking about Infinity and 40K and that kind of stuff. And, not everyone's into it, of course. Not everyone will be into everything I am, but it does make me feel better when it's like, this is going to sound so asinine and conceited, but I like when people are here to hang out with me and not necessarily just hop in for an AOS fix and dash away. And I say that not because I think I'm something special, but because I'm very community-driven as a person, Let's hang out and talk about dumb, nerdy games, whatever that game might be, together. So that means a lot to me. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. That being said, AOS is a great game. Let's see, what do I need? I need Retributed Gold. Nope. Here we go. I want to have a gold. He has a star on the side. I want to put some gold on there just to have different kinds of metallics. Hey Doug, I'm curiously curious. With all the reading you are doing with the lore videos and battle tomes, would you ever write your own story, AOS or otherwise? I was actually over coffee having a conversation about that with my wife today. She is highly suggestive of it. Like, it's like, hey, or encouraging, I should say. Suggestive, that's funny. Like, you should really consider writing your own stuff and that kind of thing, which is very awesome. And I guess, for me personally, I don't see myself as a creative person. And when I say that, a lot of people are like, what? The truth is, when I explain myself to friends, I kind of put myself as like, I am a passionate presenter. I love telling stories, but there's a difference between telling stories and crafting them, to be honest, I see myself as more of a, if we're going to take my position and kind of apply it to professions and that kind of stuff, in another world, I could have been a great teacher. And that's kind of how I view myself, is taking large concepts, breaking them down into a very streamlined way and presenting them in a way that is interesting and very easy to follow, I think is kind of the core of it. That's my skill that I bring, my unique selling proposition, if you will, is definitely that. Whereas that's not necessarily the same as generating the story. Would I ever? I kind of want to work on it. Honestly, I've been watching a bunch of videos on how to create a unique city in an RPG game. Okay, because I've never played a role playing game in my life, like D&D, like where you're hanging out with people and you're all, that kind of stuff. I played, video role playing games, of course, but never with people. And the reason I point that out is because what I want to do on my own is I want to flesh out Karngrad, which is the city that features prominently in Warcry, specifically like the short story novels. I want to flesh that out and make it my own thing. But I don't know how to do that kind of stuff, in a meaningful way, taking what's already there and kind of expanding upon it, because Games Workshop doesn't talk about Karngrad all that much. There's like 2 or 3 places that really show it in a meaningful way. So to answer your question, that's a very long way of saying I'm trying. I want to. I'm going to be learning how to do it, but it's not something I'll be doing like tomorrow or something like that. It's a skill I want to practice, that kind of thing. When I explain myself to my friends, makes something of a drinking problem. Exactly. Well, it's just when someone's like, "Hey, what do you do?" and you're like, "I play with toy soldiers, and people online are excited to hear about it, so much so that I built a career off of it." You got to kind of explain yourself a little bit. Like, oh, they're not just like toy soldiers. Hear me out. That kind of thing. Oh, man. Pitch my concept of highlighting a realm by comparing all other sub-factions from that realm. Like Uran has these Stormhost, Ideneth Enclaves. That's an interesting idea. That's a great one. That's a really great idea. Seriously considering starting an AOS army? Just got an analysis paralysis. Oh man, it never goes away. Or you could be like me and just get them all. I just rotate out. Rick, thank you so much for the kind words, buddy. I really do appreciate it. Today I received a box of Black Library books. A lot of reading ahead. Nice, Septimus. That's awesome. Let's see. All my D&D games were more super fun stories. Like we all made characters based off movie stars. Yeah, so like my brother, who I didn't know this until he was well out of high school. Like he didn't do a whole lot of gaming stuff when he was living with us, but then through college you just have different experiences and that kind of stuff. And he got really into D&D stuff, and he would tell me about these games they played where they would each, like he would be like Brock Sampson from Venture Brothers, and that would be his character, the barbarian style, where it's just like mad murder crazy guy. I love that kind of stuff. Let's see, so I need that to highlight the red bits, and I think I'm going to save the face for like a different time. I want to kind of devote some real time to that one. And better, you're right. No one's ever made me feel dumb for this hobby at all. To be honest, like the only time I was ever made to feel not dumb. I think the word I'm looking for is immature, right? I think the only time I was ever made to feel that way is I had a corporate job working for, it was a subsidiary of CVS here in the U.S., but specifically we did medication for cancer patients, like intravenous medication you could do at home. Because I worked in healthcare for many, many years. That was my career in the before 4 times. But that was the only place that anyone ever made me feel like, Doug, you shouldn't talk about that here. That kind of thing. And it was just because, I don't know, everybody just had that cutthroat corporate mindset, and I just didn't care for it. And I didn't jive there, and I left there, and that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made, to be honest with you. Because every place I've gone to since has been like, what do you mean? You just like talk about games and people want to hang out with you? I'm like, yeah. They're like, that's awesome, because it is. But that's just what it is. GW just released Meta Watch again. Competitive metagaming for Warhammer makes me sick to my stomach. It doesn't for me. How do I want to word this? it wasn't until the Metal Watch things, honestly, because I like AOS dance so much, that I really started paying attention to like what, I don't care about the metagaming in the competitive sense of like wanting to win, but I like knowing how people are perceiving things. You will always find better players at this game than me. I can't stress enough that beating me is not an accomplishment. Like I was at Nova and someone beat me and they're like, I beat Tivla stuff, and I'm like, you have no idea how not brag-worthy that is, but I'm gonna let you have it. I'm so easy to beat, mainly because I take my eye off the objective all the time and I'm just like, kill, just rush at the enemy, make terrible decisions. But it's the role playing aspect is how I play it off. Like I'm so cool. But they were excited, and I was not going to diminish that at all. But it made me interested in like, okay, so what do people perceive about certain armies? Like I like to keep my finger on that pulse, just because, like my example I gave before of, we were doing a Path to Glory game or a campaign thing, and some new player who's never played Warhammer before was like, I like Flesh Eater Courts, and this was at the pinnacle of when Flesh Eater Courts were a problem for a lot of people in a lot of competitive circles. And so I like knowing that stuff, because when that crowd reacted so negatively to a new player who has no concept, like understanding why people have negative feelings about things, to me is important for, honestly, if nothing else, addressing them, oh man, I put my brush straight into that red by accident. That's when I said, like, Flesh Eater Courts are not a problem. Gristlegore was the problem at that point. And I stand by that. And I could, because I kind of kept my finger on the pulse and I understood what was going on with Gristlegore, I could articulate that to the group, and ultimately the person did join and they had a great time. But without knowing what the core issue was, I couldn't have helped, and that to me was important. But I understand what you mean when you say like competitive play is no fun, like, because it's about, honestly, a lot of that stuff is just about people's perception of the game rather than the reality of it. By that I mean, outside of that one new person who lost a lot of games because they were a new player, I've never played against a Flesh Eater Courts player. Straight up. So like people get all worked up about what they read about on the internet, and that's important to know as somebody who wants to help people come into the hobby and make sure everybody has fun. But people forget that, like, well, none of that matters if you don't have anyone who plays it. You could be all upset about rules balance, but if you don't actually ever play that faction, like, or against it or anything like that, it doesn't matter. So don't worry about it. Don't get all worked up. Love the paint scheme. When did you come up with that? Oh, this is just something I wanted to try. This is a buddy's model. And so it doesn't show up super well in this camera because I need this intense light right here, and that kind of throws off the white balance. But what you're looking at is essentially bone-colored armor with a Balthazar gold style trim, which I'm going to add some Nihilic Oxide onto here in a sec. He's got like a red horse blanket essentially, and then some silver to kind of go with it. But yeah, I just wanted to try it. Honestly, it's a bit inspired by Jack from Rolling Ones. His Khorne army, they have a bone-colored armor, and I really like it. Like, I think it bangs from beginning to end, and his army is beautiful. Let's see. Nothing better than running 120 ghouls across the board with 12 crypt horrors in the middle. Yep. I mean, the thing is like, when you say that, right, running all those models across the board, two things happen. One, I get very excited because I love the idea of horde armies. And then secondly, instinctively, my back goes into a deep, deep pain because I think about the reality of having to move all those freaking ghouls across the board. And it's just like, nope. I said that before on my last live stream. I try not to repeat myself too much for people who tune in a lot, but just that idea of like, man, that army, and it goes for 40k AOS, any game system. X army looks amazing when it's fully painted and there's all the troops on the board and it's looking rad. And then you get to movement phase, turn 1, and you're like, frick, because now you realize you actually, it's not a spectacle anymore. Now you actually have to like move all these freaking things. And it's just soul crushing. Let's see. Playing that 160 Plague Monk life, I know that feeling. Oh, Plague Monks are so cool. And they do exactly what you want them to do. But it only takes you 4 hours to move them all to do it. Like in terms of just, they die in droves and you're going to, honestly, like, I reached a point, the army that I struggle with at the most with is Bone Splitters, where it's like, really like this, or not Bone Splitters, Beast of Chaos. I really like my Beast of Chaos army. They were cool. Problem is, I spent more time unpacking and repacking the army than any of those models saw on the table. And I just got frustrated. And I was like, nah. Nah, I'm good. I think he's panning out pretty darn well. I got to do some highlights on the silver. What else do I got to do? His face and the sword, but we can get to those in a bit. I'm actually going to do, if you've ever seen the Grey Knight swords, where it's like, they have like a power sword, it's like blue and alternates blue and silver. I'm going to do the same thing. Excuse me, but with red. Movement trays. Yeah, the thing, movement trays are a lot. Just, the problem with movement trays is more to do with like, if you get charged, it gets awkward and that kind of stuff when it comes to pulling people off. Or piling in and that kind of stuff. Let's see. Just painted AT Mortec Guard for my husband. You are the best spouse ever. You are the most significant of significant others if you painted 80 Mortec Guard for somebody. There you go. Here's your compliment. I don't know if he says that enough, but by golly, Doug will say it. Isn't Flare Heavy Blisterkin pretty strong? It is, yeah. And actually, if I was going to do... So I'm kind of torn right now on my next project for AOS. I'm leaning... I've decided to do two things specifically. I'm going to grab just a little bit of Chaos stuff so that I can use all of my Warcry warbands as a Slaves to Darkness army. But that's not necessarily the project I want to do next. I just want to get a few heroes here and there, and that's all it needs. I have plenty of stuff. I have like 15 Chaos Knights and that kind of thing. So that's going to be a side project, but for the next army I'm going to be doing and focusing on, I'm torn between Ogre Maw tribes and Flesh Eater courts, but specifically Flesh Eater courts with a focus on horrors and flayers. Because you can see the parallel between those two factions is big old dudes, right? That kind of stuff. So, I don't know. That's kind of my thought. Mortec Guard equal elite horde unit. Exactly. Yep. Yes, they also equal immovable rock, bane of many people's existence, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of words we can use to describe them. Oh, man. Can't imagine painting a horde army. That's the thing is I've painted multiple horde armies because I just never learned my freaking lesson. I gotta shake this a bit more. Never. I'm just like, oh man, that's going to be amazing looking. Now I'm learning my lesson in terms of like, for a hot second I was like, oh man, I want that Tzeentch holiday bundle. It's like, do I really want to paint and invest heavily in Arcanites? Because if I was going to buy that, like, I would want an Arcanite army, straight up. Like, I don't want to focus on anything else. Those are the models I like. Those are the models I'm going to use. Do I want to do that? Nah. Let's see. Obviously, you go ogres because of the Christmas box coming out, as well as Feast of Bones half. I thought about that. about the holiday box. But the thing is that at any given time, you can walk into a game store, pick up 2 Flesh Eater Court starter boxes, and have the same value for around the same price. Right? I think the holiday bundles typically are about $170, and for $160, yeah, for $170, yeah, right about there, you get the same sort of thing for Flesh Eaters, and that has always been, to me, the strong point of that faction. Is just, man, is it easy to get into. Mother of pearl. Would personally pick Flesh Eater Courts because I like the lore. Yeah, that's honestly, and that's why I really do lean towards Flesh Eater Courts. Is ever since I did that lore week for them when their second book came out, man, they're just so stinking cool. They got so much going for them in terms of cool backstory, and you can kind of create whatever you want in terms of their origins. And I like this idea of mine being like a religious cult, which is typically what which is really what the Blister Skin kind of faction is. They are a religious zealot cult type thing, spreading the good news to the evil heathens of the realms, but in their mind. But obviously they are super crazy and all kinds of delusional and stuff. Yeah, I like that quite a bit. So I'd want to do that, but I think I want to do it a little bit differently than the Blister. I don't want to do their paint scheme. I'm not really a huge fan of the really, really light flesh. I think that's a bit much for me. Where it's like all reddened and that kind of stuff. It's just not my fave. Any advice on starting a Spider Fang army? Other than buy an ungodly amount of spiders? Not really. Their synergies are pretty straightforward in terms of like, you're going to want multiple of the spider bosses. Yeah, I don't have a ton of suggestions for you, just because, quite frankly, it's just by virtue of the literal models not being the easiest to get a hold of. I don't see a whole lot of stuff online of people coming up with ways to play it. So I don't quite know. I apologize. Nihilic Oxide is one of my favorite paints that Games Workshop has ever come up with. Where, to me, the way that I use it is you basically dump it on and then flick it, and whatever's left, boom, it's rust. That's pretty much all there is to it, and I respect it. What I see a lot of folks do with it, though, is they put way, way too much on. When it comes to those effect paints, tell you what, less is always more. Always. Yeah, I'm sorry, Chris. That's the thing. The thing is, man, that Arachnarok model is so good. It's just a great model. Period. I don't know how it does in the game, to be honest with you. The thing is, like, a lot of their abilities trigger on, like, unmodified 6s do a mortal wound, and so it has the potential to do a lot of mortal wound output, but typically you're not taking a lot of those really, really big, cool centerpiece models, because you just want more and more spider cav to get more and more opportunities to do mortal wounds, which is not a bad thing. It just turns into a pure, like, horde army, and it's a cool one. They really are, but it gets to be a lot for folks, in terms of you're not taking the Arachnarok and those kinds of things. You're really just hammering down on how many spider cav can I jam into this list, which is not, if that's what you want, boom, you're making money on top of money. But yeah. Omniphase, they're going to get a Tomb Celestial. Yes, actually, it's already been previewed someone took a snapshot of the next Tome Celestial coming out, and there is, without question, a thing in there about them. So yes, they will absolutely. So honestly, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Crust, you asked about Spiderfang. I would say wait for this next Tome Celestial to come out. And, you know, there's a channel that loves talking about Gloomspite Gits, and that is AOS Coach. He is a Gloomspite Gits player. And for all of the other Tome Celestials that have come out for that faction, he has done episodes on them, so I would highly suggest checking him out. Because I know he'll have an episode about it, because I think he is kind of in that same set of like, I want this to work, it just doesn't quite always make sense the way it should, kind of a deal. Plus, he's just one of my favorite people. He's a good guy. Let's see. A Ragnarok for Warcry is awesome. Oh man, yeah. I there are so many models that I never had a reason to get. But now I'm like, ooh, I can get that for Warcry. Ooh. Shading the scales on my Lord Celestin is done. Yes. Nice. Let's see. Be careful picking an army. Considered strong people always complain. Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, that's the thing is though, I'm not going to be playing AOS anytime soon. One, because of lockdown, but two, you know, there's just not a lot of AOS happening around here, and honestly, probably the next time I play AOS is going to be whenever Adepticon picks back up, in which case it's an event and I can bring things that crush streams and nobody would think twice about it. And I'm okay with that. One of the things I like to be, at least in theory, and Jack kind of introduced me to this concept, is the idea of a spoiler army, which is like, I'm not going to win. I'm not here to win. But you're kind of being a dick, so I can absolutely spoil your dreams of winning, which I know is so petty. But sometimes you just need that guy. You need that guy who has the list that nobody was talking about online. You know, the guy who goes back to his home and is like, guys, you're never going to believe it. But, and then just pick the dumpiest army, like, Squigalanch is back, and it rocked my world, and it knocked me out of the winning for, you know, this event, and that kind of stuff, where everyone's just like, what are you talking about? That's the worst army ever. Nobody can win with that. Let's see. As a formal Nurgle player, what do you think of Festus? You know, I had Festus right before I got rid of the Nurgle stuff, and I never got a chance to use him. But how do I word this? He does very cool things for the army. I see him a lot in Blight King heavy lists. I'm sure Paul Conti, who does Radio Free Hammerhall, his channel, he probably has a lot of strong opinions about it, because I know he was running Festus quite a bit. But I personally never took him, just because I really focused on the Puscoil Blightlords, and they moved so fast that they would pretty much pull away from any of the things that he was doing. Like, he just wasn't around for me. And that was always my main consideration when I was playing that army, is just like, I need to have buffs, but they have to be mobile. You know, they have to be able to keep up. So Harbinger Decay could, but I didn't end up needing him, because then they made that change in the game where you only get one, like, after save, so to speak. And so the Puscoil Blightlords already have one because they're on demons, so it didn't matter. Let's see. Oh, sorry, Josh. That sounds like a real bummer. Yeah, it hit all of us. I remember we were planning out our trip, me and the Rerolling 1 guys were all going to Adepticon. We were all so excited, and then when the breakout stuff happened, and because I was working specifically in healthcare with the clientele I've always worked with in healthcare has always been the elderly. I was like, I gotta be responsible, and I bowed out. And then like 3 days later, Adepticon straight up canceled. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't lose much. Let's see. When are we going to get a Malarian model? I don't know, but I'm here for it. My body is ready. Let's see. I have a KO force and I have a full flying dude on chips, magnet, baron, stands. They're a bit expensive, but I love them. Yeah, actually, I know that guy. Constantine. Yeah, I mean, my goodness. The flight stands they try to sell you that come with the model, not try to sell you. They already sold it to you. So small. Never gonna hold up a ship. No. Dang near need to get like a whole lead pipe to hold that thing up. Especially the biggest one. I can't remember what it's called right now, but yeah. Question, what would you add to the Tzeentch box to make an army? Honestly, based on what's already in there, I would probably grab more Zangor. Because a full unit of Zangor, because they give you one box, I believe, in there. But a full unit of Zangor is nasty. Some people would say horrors. It kind of depends on what you want to do, to be perfectly honest with you. But, building off of what's already in there, like, for me, I'm one of those people, like, I would rather, take the stuff that I already own and kind of get use out of that before just dumping money into something else. So it's like, how can I get the most value out of what I already own, right? And that's kind of my go-to. I'm gonna grab. Let's see. Where is my red tone? Here we go. Sweats nervously, realizing the Violodon uses the same flight stand as the Ironclad. Yeah. I don't think the Leviathan is as bad. At least I have not seen people have the same amount of trouble with it. Because I think it hangs just a bit lower. No, I want it to be better than that. Okay, one sec. I gotta figure out the solution to my red problem. It's fine. The big flight stands. Yeah, no, they're fine. Lucian's of Gash has a huge chunk of death. Yep. Yeah, I'd probably... sorry, the last question I saw was still the Tzeentch one, so... Yeah, I'd probably add... Sorry, I'm just trying to add a little bit of red into the cracks and crevices of these horns he's got rocking. And then when this contrast is dry, I'll go back over and pick out the parts that shouldn't be red. Okay. Perfect. What's next? Suppose we should try to get his eyes on the horse. What would you say is the hardest army to transport? Well, it depends, because there's different models within each army. Like, for example, I had a lot of trouble finding a way to transport my Nurgle, but most Nurgle players don't. But I wanted to focus exclusively on Pusquails, who are like 8 inches tall and their wings go straight out, so it's this weird size, you know. But, you know, Nurgle as a whole, people generally don't consider to be too hard to transport. So it depends on the models you're aiming for. Hardest thing to transport that I would ever... I would say Daughters of Cain, because of the Kinerai, would be a pain. Anything that has a lot of tips that, like, you know, weapon tips that go out super far. Illumineth, probably Zuck, just because the spearmen are literally wielding 3 inches long spears. That is so frustrating to me. What else? Yeah, I think that's probably a tough one. Has anyone got a better one than that? Sylvaneth, not even close. The most fragile things. Yeah, I guess they are pretty bad. Yeah, no, those spears are miserable. I hated those spears. Even when so GW, I think they sent me a box. Yeah, they did. And then I just had the worst time trying to move those things. Like, literally just, like, take them to my buddy's house just to build them. If you use the little plastic flight stands, wheels pop off pretty easy. Okay, cool. Actually, I got some shiny bone right here. Sylvaneth Wild. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, Sylvaneth, they have the Wildwood, and that's not even like an optional thing to an extent. It's part of the faction in a way that most other armies don't have terrain as part of their faction. I will say that's something it's always kind of dissuaded me from trying Sylvaneth. Because I love their ability to, like, teleport and stuff. I think that's super rad, but the fact that it almost requires terrain to function is just like, eh. Was never a fan. I was hoping they would kind of not necessarily get rid of the Sylvaneth Wildwoods at all, but just kind of change it to where there's a few ways to play without them. But it's just so important. Let's see. I'll also add horde factions. Yeah, that's a good point. Just because of the sheer bulk of what you have to move, that's a good point. Especially if they have a lot of different sizes and shapes, like my Beast of Chaos. Because you got, you know, a bunch of, like, Ungor and stuff, but then you just have big ones of just, like, no way around it. Like, Chimeras are a pain in the butt to transport. Is what it is. Hey Doug, weird question. Have you ever played against anyone with a disability or who needed help from you to play against you? I'm blind, but I've been getting AOS with my wife. Have I ever played? I played a gentleman with one arm, and so I was helping him. Honestly, let's see. Yeah, one arm. I played somebody who he wasn't completely blind, but had a lot of vision impairment, and somebody who I'm not sure of what the actual diagnosis was, but his hands shook constantly, and so it was very hard for him to make minute movements. Those are the only ones I have experienced. Let me just think in my head here. And you know what I learned from those? The same, honestly, it just reinforces the same lesson I try to tell everybody when they get into this hobby, is just stating your intent is the most important thing you can do. By that I mean, the gentleman who was shaking, as well as the gentleman with one arm, I'd be like, okay, you want to move them? Where do you want them to be outside of? You know what I mean? Like, tell me what you're about to do, and I will, as an honest opponent, bring them to where they need to be to do that thing. So if it's like, can you help me by moving that unit of Chaos Warriors forward? I'll ask, yes. Are you going to be charging into this unit of mine? Yes. Okay, so I'm going to move them in the most optimal way that if, it were my army, I would move them that way to be able to charge. That kind of stuff. Parkinson's could have been, I don't know. That was my first thought, but I'm not sure. Because I've worked with folks who have Parkinson's, and I don't know. His shaking looked different, but I suppose shaking can look different. But yeah, so I most certainly have. Good on you, and good luck to you and the missus. Let's see. Yeah, the gentleman with one arm was interesting just because, honestly, even just the simplest things that we take for granted, like pulling your tape measure out, you know what I mean? Like, so he basically had 2 tape measures and a bunch of those like measuring sticks, so the pre one, and he would just kind of put them off to the side and grab them over and that kind of thing, which I thought was a really great solution. And instead of having to literally have a measure tape for everything, he just had his like the acrylic measuring sticks just kind of laid out, and he would just feel like, okay, got this one here, and there was one for each relevant things. Like if he had an 18-inch bubble, there was an 18-inch stick, that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, it's one of those things. I will admit that a lot. I'm sure you understand. A lot of the hobby that people share is through a visual medium, but that does not mean that there's not much to enjoy if you are visually impaired. For example, awesome stories, gaming, that kind of stuff. I'm sorry if you hear a horn in the background. That's a train going by. A train went by during the big Deepkin battle sequence thing that I recorded for Broken Realms, and people were like, wow, really stepping up your game with those sound effects, because they thought it was like a war horn or something like that. And I was like, yes, sound effects. Ha 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 ha. This is me leveling up. And I just, so basically that scene where that happened, I had like re-recorded it twice, and so I just didn't, I used the wrong one. Wish the community around you was bigger. Very few people I game with would be that nice to an opponent. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I've always had the opinion that the only way a game truly fails is if no one's having, or both people are not having fun. Another way to put it, that Greg from Cranky Wargamer is another channel. He does a lot of BattleTech stuff, and he's really cool. Basically, he said, like, own your opponent's fun. By that I mean, make sure that you're both enjoying yourselves. Because if not, it's a waste of time for both of you, because who wants to play against a salty opponent? And who wants to be one? Nobody, you know? But if you take responsibility and make sure, hey, are you having a good time? No? Okay, let's re-rack and do something else. You know, that kind of stuff. That's when everybody starts having a good time. That's when memories happen. That's when all that kind of stuff. Honestly, for the first while I was doing this channel, I kept quote-unquote losing games because I had a good army and I was playing well, but people weren't having fun, and so I would just say, hey, listen, let's just stop. Let's go get a beer. Let's just hang out. I forfeit. Boom. Done. I'm not wasting my time on my day off being frustrated. So I'd much rather just hang out with you, get a drink, chat, get to know you. That was exactly my goal. Hey Doug, Warcry has turned me on to GW box games. Which other games do you recommend? If you don't mind the deck building, Underworlds is a fantastic game, and there's a cheap version online if you want to try it before buying any miniatures. Because they made a video game version of it. What else? If you have players nearby, Necromunda is a ton of fun. It is much more rules heavy, I will warn you, than Warcry, but it's that same level of game in terms of like the scale. You know, it's just a handful of guys. It's very, very campaign heavy. So like your guys are going to be dying and changing and upgrading gear and all that kind of stuff. Blood Bowl, I haven't seen the new rules, but from the changes I have heard, it sounds like they made some wonderful changes to it to make it much more streamlined and efficient. So that one is definitely something I am keeping my eye on. The concept of Blood Bowl is just the best. It's just, you might be like, oh, I don't like football, so I won't like Blood Bowl. It's like, Blood Bowl is not football. You know, the second you use an ogre to throw a goblin across the board and towards the end zone, like, you just realize, like, this is just ridiculous, but in the best kind of way. And I appreciate it for that reason. So Doug can already guess I woke up early to pre-order that new set when it came out. Yeah, that's awesome. Eventually I'll get my hands on one. I do really like the game, and I like those kind of smaller games anyway nowadays. But yeah, I'll get there eventually. All right, friends, I think with that, I'm going to hop off. I've been going for quite a while. Got to get some lunch in me. But thank you for hanging out with me today. It was a cool little chat. Just had a great time. Those box games are, in fact, quite dangerous. They'll get you sucked in. But anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out today. And hope to get my stream kind of fixed up next time. And y'all have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I'll see you tomorrow for a wire reforging, and then we'll chat about the preview after that's done. So see you all. Have a wonderful day.